Good afternoon, my name is Armand Christian Sery-Ble and I am the president of Genaza Biomedical, and today I would like to speak about our campaign. We are engaged into the global wellness campaign to raise awareness about the consequences of environmental pollution and to also fight premature death in Africa. Our aim is to reduce the rate of mortality attributable to environmental pollution, because for many years Africa has been a dumping ground of so many developed countries, and the consequences are such that people like this have suffered. The kids ended up with neurological problems, liver problems, heart diseases, you name it. The land were polluted for so many years. The consequences are countless. You have kids now who grow up without certain parts of their body. It is a problem of great magnitude that need to be addressed, and we believe that only a stimulus package affording each African country $5 billion over 15 years, so $5 billion a year over 15 years, would help address the issue. However, there are some people who don't quite understand where we are coming from. It is a scientific fact that environmental pollutants are endocrine disruptors, so they destroy the physiological function of the body. And as you know, or probably know, let me say that the Bible says that for the lack of knowledge my people perish. And what we've seen in Côte d'Ivoire, for instance, is that the management of Trafigura, one of the polluters, do not acknowledge and do not find themselves responsible for the dumping of toxic waste in our country. And probably because they do not know, or probably because nobody told them the consequences and the mechanistic aspect of the diseases that are presented. But I would like to share with you here some of the mechanistics that are involved in the occurrence of numerous array of diseases that are inherent to environmental pollution, in order to stress the need for this green stimulus package, which is really much needed. In 1400, in the year 1400, there was a great chemist, Paracelsus, who said that everything is poison. Everything is poison. Only the dose determines the toxicity. And if a boat filled with toxic waste is toxic enough, is high dose enough to cause this type of problems, you don't need to have 4 or 5 PhD in pharmacology, toxicology, environmental, and medicine to know that. The mere fact that they smell it alone can send someone to a hospital is a clear indication that those pollutants are dangerous. So moving on to the mechanistic aspect of action of these pollutants, as I was saying, every physiological process holds its origin from the genetic standpoint. The genetic processes involve several elements, including proteins and other processes, but mainly proteins are involved in gene expression, in gene transcription, and the protein can be modified, can be the function of the protein may be altered as a result of bad protein synthesis, and that can arise as a result of a mutation that may take place at the protein level, at the DNA level. Let's say the ligase doesn't work anymore, the helicase or any other enzyme involved in the gene expression or gene transcription may be altered as a result of a high dose of environmental pollutant. And so it is a mere fact. It's in the literature, and it's nothing new about that. So I believe that the people of Trafigura and all the polluters should learn more about the mechanistic aspect of their pollutant. And as I was saying, in the process of protein synthesis at the translation level, it has been proven also that environmental pollutant can hinder the transcription of the gene and also the translation of the gene that leads to the synthesis of protein, and impairing the ribosome or the reading of the mRNA. For instance, the function of the mRNA, for instance, can be impaired as a result of the presence of certain pollutant. And as a result, if a protein, for instance, the conformation of the protein, for instance, changes as a result of the impaired protein synthesis mechanism, the 3D shape may change, and because the function of the protein is determined by the folding of the protein, by that 3D shape is determined also by the amino acid, their disposition. And so the way a protein is folded depend on the presence and the type of amino acid present. And that can be modified if the genes that are coding for the protein are modified. And this happens a lot. And that's why we have a case of cancer and many other diseases inherent to environmental pollution. So if a protein, for instance, was a transmembrane protein, and there is a modification that took place as a result of the synthesis of the protein may not have the same function anymore. The post-translational modification may not take place. If the protein, for instance, was a receptor, it may not function well anymore. If it was an antibody, it may not function well anymore, and you can end up with an autoimmune system. For instance, you may be in a case of a cytochrome P450 not being able to metabolize what you eat, what the drugs that you take, and so forth. So it is at the genetic level, and it is a well-known fact. It's in the literature, and most of what we know come from the developed world, and there's no reason why people who know would bring their trash in the country where their people don't know. I mean, this is a total, it's a world upside down. It's a criminal act, and they ought to be arrested and brought to justice, and they will. But I just wanted to make sure that we clearly understand where we're coming from, because this is the beginning of a class action lawsuit that all Africa will bring against the polluters. We have to understand that. Some people may end up with diabetes, for instance, because the transporters, the glucose transporters may be altered, or the insulin transporters may be altered, owing to the same mechanistic process that will lead to the malfunction of the protein, for instance. So as I was saying, the immune system can be depressed as a result of the domain not functioning well anymore because of the mutation that may have taken place, and in the case of a bacterial infection, you may have a bacterial infection that normally will be cured, but because of a mutation that took place, in the environment. In the case of mycobacteria, you may end up with a very severe disease, or a case of bacteremia where the bacteria develop a very strong resistance against the drugs that are normally used. So when someone is not responding well to a drug, the doctor tends to give him another drug, which causes another problem to the patient. So we're going from a situation where someone was probably recovering from a flu or from a diarrhea, and all of a sudden there is the input of environmental pollution. The problem is, his problem is aggravated, and the drug is no longer useful for him, and he ends up with a complicated health status. So it is very important that Trafigura does understand that there are a true meaning to the statement that we're making, that they are responsible for the health effect, the negative health effect of the environmental pollution that they have caused in Côte d'Ivoire. And those long-term negative effects are serious and need to be addressed in a very systematic way, in a very constant way, and the funds must be made available. It is not just to accuse someone, but it is to put together a comprehensive plan of recovery for the people who have been exposed wrongfully because of a reckless management of the pollutants that have been shipped to those countries. It is a serious matter. We have a cycle here of metabolic process involved in the involving cytochrome P450. The cytochrome P450 is a protein, and so by virtue of the fact that they also can be modified, well, if we have in a baby or an elderly such modification, the elderly may not live long enough, or the kid may not live long enough. Even in the regular adult, you can have this type of modification that may arise. So if your liver does not function well, you can end up with a liver problem. And